Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Rules Horror. Story 1. The Game of the Dead, The Long Night. A place to share scary stories which contain a set of rules to follow. You tiredly pull yourself up from the dirt, and the cool night wind sends shivers down your sweat-soaked spine. You're dead tired, covered in grime, and your shirt is reduced to tatters. 4 long fresh cuts on your chest send painful ripples to your head every time you move, and your wobbly legs are threatening to cramp every second now. And yet, you've never felt more alive. You breathe in deeply, and for an instant you are able to forget where you are and what you've just done. Unfortunately, another piercing round of pain brings you back to your senses. You examine your injuries. The cuts aren't deep, and they've stopped bleeding a while ago. But having your flesh exposed to the cold air isn't a good idea, and the stinging pain prevents you from thinking clearly. You rip off what remains of your shirt, and carefully fashion the rags into makeshift bandages. You clean them as much as you can, using a flask of water you've managed to obtain by trading with the collector. The sight of that item brings back unpleasant memories, but you shake your head and wash both your wounds and your would-be dressing. It doesn't take long, but you are finally able to properly cover your chest. The pain isn't gone, but at least now it's bearable, and although your bandages aren't the cleanest thing on the face of the earth, they will have to do. You turn around, examining the coffin you've just dug yourself out of. You're free, and most importantly, you're still alive. You let your gaze wander, scanning the environment around you. You're in what looks like a run-down graveyard. Cracked tombstones litter the ground, and corroded and consumed statues of what you suppose were once angels tower over them, keeping watch over this god-forsaken place, their silent vigil unyielding and unending. A tombstone more like a simple grave marker, a wooden cross covered with mold and made smooth by the rain catches your eye. You can barely make out the initial letter of the name that was once carved into this cross. S. Of course, you know who the grave belongs to, your unlikely and slightly spooky savior. You take out of your pocket a small silver bell, her parting gift before leaving you to face what you have no doubt was the worst night of your life. With a little bit of hesitation, you ring the bell. So, you've managed to pass the first trial of the game. Well done. Her voice seems to be coming from right behind you, and it catches you by surprise. You turn around, barely managing to suppress a startled yelp, and you're finally face to face with your guide. She's pretty short, barely over 5'1", and her young features contrast pretty sharply with the seriousness of her gaze. She looks exactly as she sounded, a teen girl, barely 13 years of age. What catches your interest, besides from the fact that she's half transparent and her eyes are an unsettling shade of crimson, is the large gaping wound in her abdomen that stains her 18th century style dress with dark red blood. Even some strands of her long blonde hair are soaked in it. Are we done? She looks irritated, and you realize that you've been staring at her for a while. I'm sorry, it's just that, you know, it's my first time seeing a ghost. She points at your bandaged chest. Even though the wounds are not bleeding anymore, you've dressed the cuts so tightly that a few bloody stains still manage to peek through the cloth. Not really, judging by your current state. You can't help but tremble. The specter you've encountered during your previous trial was not so friendly, nor as pretty to look at. Let's put it this way, you're the first ghost I see that isn't actively trying to gut me. Happy? She chuckles, gracefully covering her mouth with her petite hands. Well, that's class if I've ever seen it. Kids nowadays are mostly spoiled brats. So, you think I'm classy, hey? She teases, with a smug smile. You've completely forgotten that she can hear your thoughts. You can't help but scratch the back of your head, trying to hide your embarrassment as much as you can. Okay, yeah, more or less. She's visibly amused by the current situation, and you can clearly see her eyes soften a little. That's very nice of you, and I'm glad you have made it out alive and in one piece. I take it that your previous encounter with my kind was not pleasing at all. That's an understatement. I can still feel his claws cutting into my skin, not to mention his rotten breath. I was going to puke my guts out, I swear. I can imagine. Their moral corruption taints their souls, even in death, they stay as evil as they were in life. Murderers, bandits, thieves, each and all of them. Yeah, it was pretty nasty. Besides, it wasn't as pretty as you. She chuckles again. Bold, aren't we? I really don't know if I should take it as another compliment, as you've seen for yourself, it doesn't take much to be more pleasant than them. You shrug. You can hear what I think, so I guess that it's best to be vocal about some stuff, and yet, you're right. It wasn't much of a compliment, considering how ugly that monster was. Agreed. She lowers her head, lost in thought. Then, she whispers. It's because of this, am I right? She gestures to her disfiguring injury. It's clear that it's something she's self-conscious of. And yet, you can't deny it. Yet. I'm sorry, I know it was rude but I couldn't help but notice it. I'm the worst, aren't I? She softly shakes her head. No, you're not. It's only natural for you to be horrified by it. I know for a fact that I am. You try to decipher her expression, and you can recognize a mixture of sadness, disgust and loathing towards herself. You want to console her, but you can't find the right words, so you choose to be straightforward instead. Do you hate what you've become? She nods. I know that my state is unnatural. I'm a cursed, wretched copy of what I was in life, and thus I bear the scars of my death. And worst of all, I didn't have a choice. She looks at you, and you can tell that she would really like to cry. But that unfortunately, she can't. Please, don't pity me. I don't deserve it. You stare at each other, in complete silence. You definitely regret asking that question, but at the same time you want to know more. You feel the need to understand her. After all, she saved your life. You're certain that without her help you wouldn't have managed to escape, let alone survive. A deal is a deal. You helped me, and I will help you. You don't even know what you're up against. Remember, the game isn't over. This is just the calm before the storm. You shrug. Does it matter? A promise is a promise. Just tell me how I can survive what's coming, and how to help you while doing so. She stares at you, slightly surprised. Then, she smiles. An honorable person, through and through. Even back in my day, people like you were rare. So be it. I will now explain to you what the next phase of the game consists of, and how you can uphold your side of the bargain. As you've probably noticed, we've just spent roughly an hour talking, and yet nothing's changed. The moon stays still in the sky, unmoving. Once a participant manages to overcome the first trial, time stops, signaling the start of the aptly named Long Night. Your objective is straightforward, and yet extremely dangerous. You have to gather 5 keys, each and every one hidden inside this massive graveyard, to unlock the gates and leave this place. I will ring the silver bell once you're in close proximity to one of the keys. The more time you spend while trying to complete this task, the more dangerous it will become. After the first hour, a bell will toll, signaling the appearance of the first threat of this trial, the Jitrash. These black, huge dogs will roam around the graveyard, and they're relentless trackers and hunters. Once one picks up your scent, they will start hunting you down. The only way to fend off these hellhounds is to hide below one of the statues of angels that you see above the tombstones. Their holy power is waning, but it's still enough to scare away the Jitrash. Remember, once you leave the safety of the angels, the Jitrash will only need 10 minutes to find you again, so my advice is to always travel in between safe zones while exploring as much as you can. The second bell strikes, and a new terror will be unleashed. The changelings will hide by mimicking other structures in the graveyard. You see something out of place, or a tombstone suddenly switches places and seems closer to you. That's probably a changeling. All you need to do is spot them and call them out. Once they're found, they'll be forced to flee, turning incorporeal and retreating to the darkness. The third hour will see the appearance of the fallen angels. Unlike the regular angels' statues, these will appear to be in almost pristine condition. As time goes on, though, they will start to corrode and look similar to the real ones. They will pretend to be safe just like their cousins, only to strike while your guard is down. The telltale sign that not everything is as it seems is their shadow. It reflects their true demonic nature. So if you notice that the shadow is mismatched compared to the statue, you'll know what you're up against. Don't look away, slowly back off and throw a lump of dirt towards the statue. They are vain creatures, and they absolutely despise being dirty. They will drop the act and start cleaning themselves, giving you time to run. The fourth chime marks the start of the fifth hour, and with it the emergence of the dark hands. There is no real way to prevent their attack, but it can be predicted and avoided. They are sensible to vibrations, so once you hear the fourth bell, try to avoid running as much as possible. They will burst out of the ground, trying to grab onto you and drag you under. You can tell they're about to attack because the ground under your feet will start to move and rumble, giving them away. If you can't dodge them and they grab you, stay completely still. They can sense movement, and the more you struggle, the tighter their grip will be. Instead, brace yourself and free your leg with one decisive pull once you feel their fingers relax a bit. The sixth hour is the last one. After this hour, no more entities will appear, but the existing ones will gradually become more aggressive and more ferocious. The sixth hour also sees the introduction of the most dangerous creature of this trial, the hunger. The hunger is a mass of teeth and claws, growling and screaming with 1,000 voices. Initially slow, the hunger knows your location at all times and will pick up speed with time. The angel statues can slow him down, but it can never be completely stopped. As you can probably tell, ideally you should complete the trial before the 6-hour mark. Unfortunately, it is really hard to do so, and the threats you'll have to face will pile up each and every hour. If you ever feel overwhelmed, go into one of the mausoleums that are scattered around the graveyard. Only once, you'll be able to seal one type of creature for the remainder of the hour, preventing their appearance. After the hour ends, the bell will toll again, and the threat will reappear. The only entity that can't be stopped in this way is the hunger, but the mausoleums will still restrain it, resetting its speed to the peak of the previous hour. This is a lot to take in. Will the game ramp up in difficulty in the next phases? It will, but I suggest you focus on passing this one first. As you can see, it's way more dangerous than the last one. Okay, so, these are the rules of this trials. When will it start? A loud metallic sound startles you, and you feel like it was the answer to your question. The gates are sealed. The trial is about to begin. She turns to leave, but you stop her. What about you? I know what I need to do for myself, but that was not the deal we made. She sighs, but you can tell that she's happy you didn't forget. You're quite stubborn, fine. My remains are hidden all around the graveyard. Some are permanently lost, ground to dust by the passing of time, but the majority are still intact. They will have to do. Once you get close to one of them, I will let you know. If you know where they are, why didn't you get them yourself? She turns around, slightly annoyed, and then plunges her hand into your chest. It passes through you without even leaving a scratch. Oh. Is that the best you can come up with? Oh. Any other dumb questions, perhaps? Fine, I get it. You made your point. The light of the moon turns paler. You feel the start of the trials approaching, so you turn around to leave. Then you hear it. It's barely a whisper, but it still manages to stop you in your tracks and put a big goofy smile on your face. Thank you, good night, and good luck. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.